Rock 106.9 WCCC. It's Mike Caroli broadcasting live from Pig's Eye Pub in downtown Hartford. It's WCCC Live with Sully Erna. Let's hear it for Sully. Sully, welcome to Hartford.
Thank you.
A place you've been to a couple of different times.
I think there's a hair on my microphone.
It's not mine.
Just went up my nose.
Was it short and curly, or was it...
I don't know.
We usually clean the mics first, but it's so early, we didn't think to do that.
It's early. I second that. It's very early. And
Well,
please, you don't feel like you need to make noise. It's okay if you want to be quiet. That's okay too.
I'll speak softly or something, all right? I don't know if you know this or not, but I've actually been in your house. Did you know that? Yeah.
What do you mean you've been in my house?
It must have been 2 years ago. I came up and I did an interview with you in your house. It was the Godsmack 10th anniversary Friday morning quarterback special. That was me.
Wow.
I didn't take anything. I came, I asked you questions, and I left.
No, I'm glad.
It was all
It's
good.
nice to know you're not a thief.
Yeah, I'm not a thief. All right, so tell us about the show. We've got a show tonight at the Klein Theater in Bridgeport. And it's not just you and an acoustic guitar. It's not Godsmack. Describe to people what the show is like tonight.
Well, it's a new project that we put together called Avalon, and it's basically built off of myself and 7 other really great musicians that some I've known for 15, 18 years, like Lisa Geyer, and others we met more recently, like Niall Gregory, who's from Dead Can Dance, percussionist from Ireland. We have a Bulgarian classically trained cellist. We have several people in the band just built off of much different backgrounds and stuff like that, and we just it was a big experiment actually, and it just very organically kind of grew into this alternative world music-ish, kind of very eclectic, primitive style music. It's more like the Voodoos and Serenities, only way deeper into that genre, so it's much more earthly, and it's a really beautiful project. I mean, everything has been built off of acoustic instruments. So when there's a cello, when you hear a cello, it's a cello player. When you hear a flute, it's a flute player. This isn't synthetic instruments. So, but it's about the music, man, and that's what we wanted this thing to be about. And I think we did a really great job creating something that was kind of what music used to be like back in the day when Pink Floyd did Dark Side of the Moon and those kind of records, where it was really a musical experience. You would put the record on and just listen to the whole thing from front to back, and that's kind of what this is. It's a very, not only musical journey, but it's a very visual journey. So, I think people will enjoy it. It's very powerful, but on a much different level than Godsmack has been.
It's interesting you said that, because as I was listening to the album, that's exactly what I thought. I thought it was very well put together from the first cut to the last cut, and it all flows. It all kind of makes sense. It's not just a singles album. It's a entire experience altogether.
Yeah, it's really not something you just pluck. I mean, there's definitely some songs on there that have lit up that we feel are going to do really well on the radio, but it wasn't written for that purpose. It was written to be a whole body of work. And that's really what this is just one, you put it on from front to back, and you could lay on your couch and really, it's a very pictorial record. It's very cinematic. So it's one of those albums that you can just sit there and vibe out to, and it really takes you through an experience.
When you first released the album, Avalon, and now you're doing this tour, does it take you out of your comfort zone from what you're so used to?
No, it actually puts me in my comfort zone, Godsmack, this isn't any kind of indication that I'm breaking up the band or that we're separating or anything like that. There's no reason for me to do that. It's completely 2 different animals. But, Godsmack is one thing and this is another thing. And Godsmack is the big rock monster that goes out and, does that kind of thing. And this is more like the seductive side of stuff, So it just doesn't compete with each other, but I'm very comfortable in this style of music because it's just another form of art that I love to create. I mean, it really takes you to other places and it helps you escape from, the everyday life things that go on that just keep you all messed up and stressed out or whatever. This is a real relaxing kind of very hypnotic vibe. It's nice.
We're talking with Sully Erna on the Rock 106.9 WCCC, doing a show tonight at the Klein Theater in Bridgeport. Tickets are available at theklein.org. You can get them at the box office as well while they're last. Compare the differences in starting up a solo project as compared to when you started up Godsmack years ago. What are the same challenges or different challenges?
A lot more salaries.
Yeah, more people to pay.
More people to pay. Well, like I said, I don't have a comparison specifically because, again, this was something that, I came to Lisa with first, and I just said, hey, I have this idea, I want to do this thing, and she was all about it because, she comes from a very strong blues background, and but I had turned her on recently to a band called Dead Can Dance. I took her to a show in Boston, and she was like immediately fell in love with Lisa Gerard and that whole vibe, and she's very deep into that kind of stuff, when it comes to energy and healing and things like that. And so I think it just kind of, in a sense, if you don't mind me speaking for you, swept you off your feet, so to speak. And so from there, I just wanted her to kind of see what that was about because it was that kind of vibe that I was hoping to do, only in a more modern sense. I didn't want it to be so authentic in that sense, but just kind of that whole experience, that whole vibe. And she immediately fell in love with that whole thing. And then from there, that night, we had actually met Niall Gregory. And so, us three started talking, and then from there, Lisa brought in Chris Lester and Tim Terrio. And then Tim had brought in our keyboard player, Chris Decato, and we found Erna through, she was doing teaching in Boston universities and all that. And the studio people that we were doing some demos through knew her. And then and Lisa had also played with David Stefanelli. And so, everyone kind of brought in everybody. And very organically, it built itself. So I don't really have a way to compare, the difference between that and what I did with Godsmack because this was just a complete experiment. It was really just, we need keyboards on this song. And Tim's like, I know a keyboard player. And he brought him in. And it just kind of kept layering like that until we were like, okay, we have 8 people. Stop.
Enough with the salary.
We can cover everything now. We're good.
And it's kind of cool that pretty much almost everybody, is from New England, right? I mean, that's cool.
Niall's from Ireland, Irina's from Bulgaria, and everyone else is from the New England area.
That's cool. That's very cool. This next question is more about, I guess, the songs on Avalon than Godsmack songs, but I guess it could go either way. When you're writing a song, do you hear the complete song in your head, and I mean all the instruments, like with this, with the cello, with everything. Do you hear it completely in your head before you write it, or do you write a basic song and then build on that?
It happens differently every time. I mean, there has been times in the past where I've heard, you can hear it in your head, kind of fully produced, and then you just got to go find the sounds and figure out what those are. Like Voodoo, for instance, I wrote it completely a cappella. I had no music to it at all. I just had the whole melody in my head and wrote it out, and then sang it for the band, and then we started writing the music underneath it. And then there's other songs that, the music was built first, and then vocals. It's usually how it happens, is music first, and then vocals later. But there is times where vocals come first. In this case, we started with some basic things. And Avalon, actually, is the first song that we wrote together as a band. And I just came in with a simple riff, and Tim took it from there, and we just started, layering some beats into it and coming up with some melody ideas and stuff like that. A couple other songs I had written earlier, like Until Then and Eyes of a Child, I wrote back. Eyes of a Child I was working on since like '03.
Wow.
I just kind of tucked it away. I always liked the guitar part. It never quite fit with Godsmack, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, so I just kept holding on to it. Same thing with Until Then. I had wrote that a few years before we put this together. But songs like Avalon and The Rise and 7 Years and Sinner's Prayer and all that stuff, it was all kind of built as we moved through this. So it happens differently.
How do you feel you do your best writing? By yourself or collaborating?
Well, it's a good question. I feel like sometimes I need to be alone to really work stuff out in my head and to get it kind of arranged. But I also think there was a great deal of collaboration on this project that just went very smoothly because everybody in the band is so great at what they do. I mean, the musicians really, I will say this over and over again, they're top-notch musicians. They've been around for a long time. It's unfortunate, you know, that they didn't have that shot to really shine in the public eye over the years and get their break as they went through their own struggles in bands and stuff like that. But now I'm really blessed to have the opportunity to be with them and to give them a moment, and hopefully the world will see how talented this band is. And it's really not about, the focus isn't really on me, it's about the music. And when you listen to the music, you'll see the talent that's involved in it. And it's really great that everyone in the band is also a multi-instrumentalist. So whenever there's stuff that needs to get done, one person or the other can handle the job. There's not one person in this band that can't play several different instruments. So,
what are the challenges in rehearsing for a tour like this? You know, with Godsmack, it's the four guys, and you just, you know, I'm sure there's challenges with that as well. But there's so many different instruments and players and vocals and all kinds of stuff. Is it much more involved to rehearse for this tour than maybe a Godsmack tour?
I don't know if it's any more difficult. I mean, Godsmack has its own challenges, you know. We have a really big double drum battle that we do that's very intricate and takes a lot of rehearsing and timing. And this, you know, Godsmack, as far as the music, it's a lot more simple than this kind of music for writing, but the show is a lot more detailed because it's grown to be so much bigger than this is right now. So there's different challenges that we have to take on as far as coordinating the show with pyro and lights and drum rises spinning and all that kind of stuff. But the music in itself with Godsmack it's more of an energy, a really strong energy, you know, and it's a presence. It's not so difficult to play in that sense. This is a little bit more intricate, and it's a little bit more hard to arrange and compose because there's a lot of little pieces that have to fit. And especially live, it's sometimes, you know, we wanted to make sure that we didn't layer too much on the record as well so we could deliver it live, you know. But at first, I don't even know if we were planning on taking this live. We were just trying to make a great record. And then once it was done and we felt like it was complete, then we had to figure out how to put it together live.
You're listening to WCCC Live with Sully Erna. Today it's brought to you by Miller Lite, Ovation Guitars, the Pig's Eye Pub, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and of course, WCCC. The show is tonight. It's at the Klein Memorial Auditorium in Bridgeport. As I mentioned before, tickets available at theklein.org, or you can get them at the box office. Coming up next, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about a couple of the songs, and then obviously we'd love to hear you guys perform. That's next on The Rock, 106.9 WCCC.